This show would not be produced without InstantlyRelevant.com. My teams at InstantlyRelevant.com do an excellent job at creating the content, the social media posts, managing the whole process. The systems we've built to help grow a business without brand-wrecking spam have been critical, and they're just so integrated into what we do here at Never Been Promoted. So if you have the same needs of growing a business online, through social media, through web, through email, check out InstantlyRelevant.com and see if they can help you as well.
Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast with Thomas Helfrich. Get ready for a thrilling adventure as we uncover entrepreneurial journeys and life-changing business insights every week. And now your host, Thomas.
Welcome to another episode of Never Been Promoted, where we help you unleash your entrepreneur by the learnings and teachings of other entrepreneurs that have succeeded and or failed and are on a journey slightly ahead of you. If this is your first time listening, once again, thank you, or not once again, thank you for listening for the first time, and hopefully you'll find some useful information in your own journey. And if you've come back to listen again, I thank you. This will be a great conversation because some of the technology that our guest is working on is pretty cool. Shahrukh Zahir, thank you for joining. You're the CEO at Right Fit Advisors. You want to take a couple of seconds to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Thomas. Thanks for having me. Shahrukh Zahir. I'm the CEO of Right Fit Advisors. We are a technical staffing firm based in Atlanta and serve the country nationwide. We are the first AI machine learning recruiting firm that guarantees that we can help you find talent in 2 weeks or less. And while doing that, we will ensure that that person we're going to find for you will increase productivity and create a culture in your organization that everybody would want to be a part of. That's who we are.
That's a really that's a bold statement. I like it. We're going to dive into how you do that. I believe you said off air. You guys have a patent on this, even, right? This is
absolutely, yeah. So we have a patent now, so nobody else can practice and operate the way we do and find people the way we find people as well.
I like it. So as someone with an intelligent automation AI background, you sound like you're filling a need for a very sometimes manual and a process that doesn't always often produce results. So we're going to dive into that here as we get. But you have a really interesting background. So I want maybe take a couple moments to set the stage of how you got to founding this company and becoming the CEO of the Right Fit Advisors.
Absolutely. So, I started my first business when I was 17 years old in a mall. I was selling cell phone accessories at that point. And, it was just a gig that I was going to do for a year because then I had to go to college. And I graduated high school early. So while I was doing that, it allowed me to understand and learn what communicating really meant and what listening really meant. And I did not know that over the years I had developed this niche of understanding people and listening to people and providing solutions in a manner that people were able to relate to it and were satisfied. So from there, I started my wireless company, successfully sold it, jumped in corporate America, worked for AT&T, Verizon, led teams as large as 45, 50 people, and was successful there, but felt burnt out in my 20s and wanted to do something more. And one of the things I looked into was recruiting, and by not necessarily intentionally. In fact, when I thought of recruiting, I felt that meant HR and payroll, and that's all I knew. But as I looked into it, and at that time, it kind of sounded like a cliche that, I get to help people find jobs and help them make more money. And how impactful is that? And started doing that and saw success early on to the point where until last year, I was managing a team in Los Angeles for an organization that had been still around for 20 years. But I decided to want to do things that I've seen and learned over the years and wanted to automate it because I felt that not everybody operated in a manner that I did. But my goal was, could I actually apply this and create a process that anybody could make the same kind of decision, can see the same kind of success that I have doing recruiting, which is truly understanding people's needs and wants and really making sure that the places that they're going, that people are satisfied and are there long term. And that was one of the things I wanted to do. And when I went on the journey, that's how the AI and the machine learning component came along.
Yeah, and the fact you have a patent on it, there's a lot of AI companies here in 2024 that are just putting pretty skins over GPT, and they're not really doing a whole lot. And good for them; they're making money doing it. It doesn't really solve big problems. What you're describing though is a complex set of human emotions and needs and wants that aren't always available maybe in technology. So just this moment, the first entrepreneurial lesson I heard you said was you dove in at a young age. And you also came back to corporate after, an exit and maybe for stability or whatever else you wanted to go do. But you came back out of it. So talk about that transition just a bit, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs or somebody who's got a side hustle, their hardest step is leaving the corporate world. So talk to me just how you felt through that a little bit and, you got into it. Because I'm sure a lot of people listening have the same challenge.
So at 17, when I started cell phone accessories, that was called Express or Sell, my little booth in mall. And that kind of ended up growing into a wireless kiosk business that which expanded into multiple locations. And by the age of 24, I had 25 people of my own working in an organization that I was leading. And I was just 24 and I was seeing a lot of success. But at that time, I recognized that, hey, I still haven't gotten the degree that I really wanted to get. And I decided that where would I go with that organization and with that degree? I was like, hey, maybe I'll become a CEO of a Fortune 500 because I have this entrepreneur experience and I've seen success here. And with the degree, that will be my segue into the corporate America. And that's essentially what I did when I went back to school for business admin. My goal was to get recruited to one of the places. And because of my retail experience, I was recruited by AT&T to work with for their retails, for the wireless stores across San Diego, which then allowed me to grow to the point where I became an area manager. It was essentially not a district manager, but a small territory that you had. And there was a title of a mentor where you mentored multiple people. And then I got recruited at Verizon, which I then made that transition. But then working in retail and even at a corporate level where I was district sales manager and overseeing these operations, it was burnout. Just working long hours, working Black Fridays, and just making sure that you were just there and supporting people. And I still remember that a year, the pictures that were taken of me through that year that were candid. I was just holding my phone or on my phone in most of them. And it was kind of a wake up call for me is I'm still in my 20s. I should be traveling the world. I should be having fun. What am I doing? I'm just on my phone all the time running a business. And the goal was to transition to a business or a career where there's a healthier work and life balance. And that was essentially the idea that allowed me to get there. But the reason I left entrepreneurship was simply because I was like, okay, well, I've done this well. I'm making good money. Somebody offered to acquire my company, and that was a lot of money for me when I was 24 years old. And I took the chance to go back to school.
Do you regret any of it?
Not at all. I feel that as an entrepreneur, it is important to not just have an entrepreneur experience, but also have an experience working in a larger organization, because you learn things that you can or cannot or should not do. And as you scale your organization, there's less room for error because you have experienced some of that in the past.
Yeah, as much as I make fun is the wrong word. I'm not even anti-corporate America. As much as I just don't want to go back. As you develop your own company, those assets, the professionalism you learned, it's up to 20 years, consulting. You learn how to behave with customers. You understand how larger organizations think and how they can appreciate an entrepreneurial approach within a corporate kind of veil of guidelines or like, persona, if you will. And so I do draw upon that in education. I would tell people that if you really want to become an entrepreneur, either do what you did and go repeat it because you just know you love it. But I think your story's not too unsimilar to mine, where I did corporate college, did this. And the thing that I found as soon as I got back into corporate, it's great money. And as long as you're making more and more, you're kind of happy. But as soon as you kind of stall or you get laid off a few hundred times or however it works, right? You're
burnout.
Hey, never been promoted. Remember, name of the podcast. Asked to Leave could have been an alternative name. Probably will be book number 2. Asked to Leave.
Looking back at it today, I don't think now I can go back to corporate America. I don't think that's my life anymore. I think that I'm truly an entrepreneur, startup guy, and I think that that's really I found my niche and my calling. So that I think I'm staying here now. There's no going back.
What's the one piece of advice then? Because kind of the point with that was you have your own journey, but for somebody who's just been in corporate, went to college, did the typical route, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to them to get started?
If they're in college, I think that one of the things anybody should do is still try to kick off some kind of a side hustle or a small business of your own. And I think that there's just so much growth and learning lessons from your failures, not necessarily from your success, but from your failures that you learn that really define you. And it is important to fail a lot in your early 20s because it allows you to know what not to do, and it allows you to understand how to operate when you see any kind of neglect in a decision that you make. And it really defines you as a person. So in your early 20s, in your teens, I encourage everybody to either save some money and put it in a business, ask your parents for $5,000, $10,000 and try to see if you can kick something.
Let me take just a quick break to acknowledge one thing. I really want to thank my team at InstantlyRelevant.com for producing this show and all the content the guest gets and all the social media that's provided after the show as well. Without my team at InstantlyRelevant.com, this show wouldn't be where it is. It wouldn't be what it is. So I really thank them, and anybody who really needs help with social media, LinkedIn specifically, or your website and email, check out InstantlyRelevant.com and see if they can do the same for you.
Well, yeah, it's the hardest 10K you'll ask for as well. And most likely one place to get it, just to be clear. It's going to be the hardest and easiest to get relative to everyone else in the world. Do you, and I think that advice, by the way, goes for anyone who is in corporate or anywhere else, is if you have any entrepreneurial thing, start a side hustle that, and it's weird. When you make, let's say someone gives you $300 for something you're doing on the side, for some reason that $300 feels so much better than maybe the thousands and tens of thousands you're making monthly. And if you don't know the feeling, you will when you do it. And do you remember that the first time someone handed you money for your idea?
I joke about this to this point that, one of the days as I was growing at 17, 18, I was growing my enterprise, quote unquote. One of the locations that I was acquired and I was told by the mall that I was the mall where I had my locations was, hey, we have an opening in Tacoma Mall in Washington State, but it's an outdoor mall in Bellevue. I'm sorry, not Tacoma, but in Bellevue. It's called Redmond Town Center. And this town center is an open door mall. But, if you want to go open your shop there, stand there for Christmas, I think you're going to do really well. And I was like, oh, yes, like I'm going to take up on this opportunity. And I still remember I was in the outdoor mall in December in Seattle, and it was cold and I was wearing my gloves, and people would come in, and at that point, people would own a lot of Nokia phones, and they would want to change their faces and their skins and all that stuff. And I would have to put my hand on a heater for a couple of minutes so that I can move and function properly. And for $14.99. And I loved it. And now today I look back at it, and I was like, you know what? I made $14.99 on selling that one little piece of plastic, but it just, it defined me as who I am. And I think it created a work ethic that now I carry with me to this day.
Yeah. And it's in that celebrating the small pieces is recognizing that it happens. And, especially when it's your idea. I can't, this is a feeling you'll get as an entrepreneur, and we're going to get to what you're doing now. It's much bigger, but I like to set that stage that making $14.99 can have sometimes more satisfaction than getting an offer for a couple $100,000 in a job that you kind of really didn't want for it. And I love that, because I think that's a takeaway of it, which drives
Absolutely.
an entrepreneurial spirit once you have a little taste of it. Because then you're thinking, man, what if I can really scale this and I'm getting $14.99 times 1,000 per day, or
Exactly.
whatever it is. And so let's go into your other piece though. So let's go to the Right Fit Advisors, and what you're solving is difficult. And so, it is a lot of, and one of my questions is going to go to this is, where and how are you getting the data? Because some of the pieces in it are inferred, and they are not readily available, let's say through LinkedIn or Zoom infos so tell me about the how you're getting the data to make these, to be able to execute the process.
Yeah. So our process, we actually licensed a 40-year-old clinical study that allowed looked into human beings in different age brackets and coming from different socioeconomy backgrounds to understand what their motivators and what their drivers are. And what we did with that is that we connected that with our machine learning algorithm. So as we communicate with individuals for our first, second, or third call, we are going through these conversations on their end, but for us, we're going through a form where we're inputting this data, and towards the end of the call, it actually produces a result of, based on the study, based on the answers, what kind of an individual this person is, and what are their drivers, motivators, and what kind of personalities would live best aligned with. And what we also then do is, if you reach out to Right Fit Advisors, and one of the advisors, you tell one of the advisors that you want to scale your team, we're going to ask you to take this assessment too, because we want to learn who you are and what your personality as an individual supervisor would be, or as an owner of a company or CEO or an executive would be. And what that would do for us is that it would allow us to understand your personality. And our goal is not to find a person that is like you. And that's the important part, that we are still continuously educating people. We're not looking to create this locker room kind of a culture. What we're looking to do is find people that will complement your skills, and in a way where it's not going to clash with your personality. So we're truly looking to find people that will just mesh well and work together well.
And that the fact that you use like clinical data, I was trying to get my head around it when you were saying it earlier. Man, like, how are they doing that for real? And so there's people listening to this may is less of entrepreneurship, but more of just business function. Such a differentiator. Say this is actual real clinical science data that goes behind a machine algorithm that can infer, and then based on real. So you actually have a human element into this conversation.
Absolutely.
People, what they share, and intent, which really defines, because it's not going to be a perfect science. But if I can say that, if you can weed out the top 10 and identify the top 10% with more certainty, the chances that person works out for that company, which ultimately makes the fit better, is enough. Like, it didn't have to be more than that. You usually get rid of the ones that are absolutely really good at lying, and the ones that are maybe gems in the rough that you weren't sure, but like, oh, 100% this is going to be the person. Flip the other side of that, though. Does your tech reverse engineer that if you take in inputs of management, style, company culture for real into that? So how do you, looking at Glassdoor versus like, hey, this is what you guys are saying, but this is what, how do you reverse engineer the fit?
I think that's a great question. So this is why Right Fit Advisors is not a Right Fit staffing firm. It's a Right Fit advisory firm. And the reason we call us that is because that is a part of a component in a partnership that we bring on table, is that we want to create a culture for you where you're driving and attracting what I now consider a modern professional. And in order to do that, there are some tangibles that you just need to have. And it's not just marketing plot anymore. It is truly fundamental values that an organization should hold to its core. And whatever that may be, it doesn't need to be defined in this status quo manner, but it just needs to be defined. And it will either attract people or not. And organizations just needs to be okay with that. So when we sit down with organizations and we get these results, we actually review them with them and we confirm, and with us We also work with a lot of smaller organizations or early startups that are just looking to define their culture versus some mid-sized companies that we work with. And in one scenario last year, the CEO just kind of took a step back and it was like, this is not who we are. And I was like, well, I'll just give you this, sit on it, read this again, and let me know what kind of questions you have. And in 48 hours, we had a follow-up call in. He was like, sure, we need to make changes in our organizations to make it more appealing to folks and not come off as this crazy company that is just all about revenues and all about just
Right.
not caring about their people and not put their people first. Because me as a CEO, I thought that we cared about our people quite a bit. I was like, well, these are the measures you can take, and those are the kind of offerings that we offer as we continue to grow. Is we want to continue to not just find organizations where we're replacing people, but also support them beyond and helping them create those cultures. Because yes, we can find you 4 or 10 or 25 people that we'll plant in your organization and they can make an impact. But if you're only hiring 1 or 2 people, that doesn't change your culture. So we are also working with executives and CEOs and founders to help them create and redefine their cultures in their organizations in different ways, and by doing activities that we recommend.
To keep it tied to the entrepreneurial spirit, I think the idea you're showing there is when you solve the solution, you didn't just yet become another technology, and you didn't become yet another mousetrap. You said there's some strategy, and this is part of the equation. What you do with your technology later to be able to onboard and maybe identify those things more autonomously, or augment the human to move faster. That's the lesson here, is that sometimes you have to look at the mousetrap you're building, make sure you're just not yet another one. You had to add a component, and this is where a lot of SaaS founders, software as a service founders, really kind of struggles, because you need a consultative element sometimes to sell your technology, and I see that a lot when people struggle for selling their. If you're in the services spot, you get this. It's actually your harder part's the technology side of doing it.
Yeah.
I love to throw it about this part in, and this is shameless plug time. So who is it that should be contacting you, and how do they do that?
Anybody, if you're somebody who is pre-seed early on and you want to make your first hire of your organization, one of your founding engineers, or you're somebody who just raised $1 million to $5 million, or you're somebody who is a $10 to $15 million annual revenue, and you're just now getting to that point where you are now transitioning into a mature, organized organization, and you're trying to figure out where to start, you should give us a call. We can sit down with you, understand, define milestones for you that don't just change overnight, but change over time. And we can create these processes that will allow any organization to be successful. What we're seeing is, one of the reasons I wanted to do it in a way that I wanted to is because, first, as an entrepreneur, I love that every single business and a client I work with, it's a problem, but it's a business that I become a augmented extension of, which I enjoy, because then I'm running a business and I'm trying to solve that problem. But at the same time, what I want to prevent doing is, no matter what happens with all the noise and everything going on, layoffs happened last year. There's going to be layoffs happening this year. One of the things that will stay true is that true best talent in tech and the best of the best top 10% talent, or even 5 or 1% talent, they still have their jobs. They're not laid off. They're not doing anything wrong, where they are feeling that, okay, I need to leave, because their organizations are either paying them more or making sure that they feel that they're part of an organization. But if all these smaller startups are starting off, especially in Atlanta being the market it is, where it actually grew more than San Francisco for the first time last year, and most of the VCs invested in Georgia, more specifically Atlanta, more than they did in SF. It is something that folks, especially in Atlanta, has to consider, is how are we going to attract that talent, and how are we going to grow our organization so we're successful. So this is where we'd come in and help you scale.
Back to the program at hand here. Let's dive in a little. So you're looking, you've learned quite a few things along the way just by doing and experimenting, and you got your mindset right for it. What are you doing to prepare for the future?
A lot. So educating a lot of organizations on how to move forward and how to brace themselves, but also how to prepare themselves. Because, every year there's a new set of workforce that enters the market. And every workforce every year is different than the year before, with motivations, with cultures, with personalities, with drivers. And it is extremely important for managers, owners, executives to understand the culture, the personality of their teams, so that they can help them grow and help them become the best version of themselves at work. And there is a lot of continuous learning that is involved in that process. So we are equipped and we're continuously going to add value and documentation. We put out blogs and case studies and newsletters, that we are reaching out to and sending to our clients and anybody that want access to it. It's not exclusive to just our clients. That will allow them to learn and just be prepared to be successful.
So you're in your company in a position to educate, which allows you to raise your personal executive eminence, let's say online and socially, digitally, but also your company's brand awareness through giving information to it. So I think from a marketing or takeaways and entrepreneurs, to prepare for the future, educate your buyer before they're a customer, because they'll know what you solve, and you'll know that your education of that helps them solve a problem. And then when they have budget or they find budget, they use your services or technology or product, whatever, to do it.
Absolutely. So there are two kinds of selling. There's like cold selling, where you're just like emailing people every day and just calling them every day and trying to get business. Gone are the days. Gone are the days that was extremely, extremely effective. I think that now there is a passive selling component to how you do things. And for any entrepreneur, they have to adapt. I mean, of course, apply both, but don't sleep on long-term social selling and passive selling through providing resources.
And as an entrepreneur, what are you doing to prepare yourself?
Well, as an entrepreneur, my goal is to equip myself with the best and the brightest people around me that are not going to help me grow as an individual, but also help me grow my organization. And I think it's extremely important that you are doing all you can to surround yourself with people. As an entrepreneur, it's a lonely road. A lot of times people don't understand who you are. Your family can't necessarily a lot of times relate to it because they're not entrepreneurs. They're not in the same field. And it is extremely important to surround yourself with people. And I would be the first one to say that I'm not the smartest person. And I would hate to be one. And I would like to be surrounded by smarter people, just so that I can learn and I can grow. And that's the best thing I do as an entrepreneur, is surround myself with people that either know more than me or have different experiences, so that I can get more perspective.
Yeah, there's only a technology that could help you hire better.
Yeah, it's just
that was a shameless plug opportunity number 2 right there.
I was going to say, look, as much there is, recruiting and staffing, there is that human interaction component to it. And, one of the things I love to do is hire people that are much younger than me, that allow me to stay young and allow me to learn things from their channel that, I often don't have perspective of.
Yeah. There's another side of that you don't realize is quite there yet, is you're going to have this need for mentoring. And you're just mentally preparing for it by learning the patience to deal with sometimes of youthful enthusiasm. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I was the worst and uncoachable. If I knew as much as I knew in my 20s, I'd be so much smarter now. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Maybe let's kind of move into just kind of some short answer stuff. So I think as you've prepared, the point is you're looking to the future to do this. I think the lesson of what you're preparing for the future specifically, and you have the technology of yourself to do this, but we practice, hire deeply. And specifically as a startup, I say this lots of times, you have to find the right people, not the people that'll say yes, and not the people related to, or people maybe even you've worked in the past because you're familiar with them, though that's a draw. They at least that evil or that good of that person. Hire deeply in a way that this person is built for not only the role, but they have the propensity to evolve with you, because that role specifically in a startup, whatever it is likely going to change 6 months to a year. And I think that's what you're getting at to some degree. And that's what you do for organizations that are maybe a little more established. But for specific entrepreneurs, it's so critical to surround yourself with people, the right people. And for the moment, jokingly, do you look at I say this and there's an answer that's right or wrong here. So just to set you up here, frankly, do you look at your organization as a family or a sports team?
Family. 100%.
Wrong answer.
Yeah.
Okay, this interview's over. Everyone, you can hang up now.
That's
I'm going to send you a link to a short.
It's tough that I do, but I do, and it's because for me, I need to, I've been called grandpa in the office, not necessarily a dad, but the grandpa, because I surround myself with people that are younger than me, and they also want to learn from me because they want somebody that is going to mentor them, but also guide them and empower them in a way where it is motivating them. And I think that it just comes down to it because when I grew up in an environment when I had a mentor and a manager or a boss, I was in a sports team. But I think that it is important to understand that, people don't, the newer generation care less about being in this competitive sports kind of environment. They want to be in this like harmonious, like butters and rainbows kind of like environment where everybody's holding each other's hands and everybody's just like sitting down and having conversations and everybody's okay with, hey, can I just walk out for 5 minutes to let the heat off or just calm down? And, and that's the kind of a culture I built around, is just to make sure that you could do that because, and it's actually a rule in our organization is that if anytime anybody wants to say, hey, I want to go on a walk, nobody can ask why or where you're going because that's they're saying, I'm just going to get up, clear my head, and no questions asked. And everybody's allowed to do that. And we want to do that because we just want to make sure that everybody feels like this is like a place where they can come and just really open up just the way they get to do it at home.
My kids I can't just go for a walk. They got to get permission, just to be clear. I think a sports team is like, hey, dude, I'm going to go do a lap. Of course. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to challenge you. Okay.
Go ahead.
Your employee gets arrested. Do you bail them out? Out of company funds, not your personal.
No, I won't.
Okay. A family would do that. Can they live in your basement?
There you go. Okay, fair enough.
But I'd say this because
I would do that. See, in my head, I was like, "Oh yeah, totally do that personally." But before that, I'll probably call their parents and their family to say, like, "Hey, what's coming to?"
There's a short I made that did really well on YouTube and TikTok about we're a family, and so we're gonna go to Disney World together. No, the park. And so it's like anyway. Thank you, everyone listening, for that little. I was having fun there. Hey, all right. So, a little quicker answers here for sure. What's a business book that entrepreneurs got to read?
2 books. Awaken the Giant Within. I think it is really good for self-development because it doesn't just. What it talks about is personal habits that you can build to get yourself going every single day when you feel alone and when you feel down. And as an entrepreneur, since it's a lonely road, I think it's important for you to read it. I've read that book probably 3 times at this point over the span of 6-7 years. And every single time I've gone back to that book and reread it, I've learned something new because you just have different perspective when you read it again. And you just have these like aha moments, which you didn't before. And then the second one is Will It Fly? I think that's a great book too, for any entrepreneur to read because it just talks about organization foundations that anybody should build and put together as they're starting to look into ideas and startups and kind of want to build some foundations of what they should do and what they shouldn't do as they're making decisions.
Anybody on LinkedIn you would recommend following and just like you enjoy their content or just kind of up and coming?
I'll be honest with you, as much as I would love to do that, I don't follow a lot of people on LinkedIn that are that I just like to follow. One of the people that recently I sat down with is his name is Brett. He runs another show like yours, Thomas, which is called Uncaged, where entrepreneurs sit down, but they exclusively talk about what was their aha moment and what made them want to go into business. And I think that it just provides context and motivation to people. And I think it's a good place to just go there. And if you're feeling down, to watch those videos, besides yours, of course.
Of course. I mean, that's a given. So what was Brett? Did you have a last name? Do you remember?
Brett, I do. His last name is, just give me one moment. I have
Please
it
wait.
here.
Searching. Please wait.
It's actually Bent Breen, not Brett. It's Bent Breen. And his podcast is called The Uncaged.
Uncaged. That's great. Here's the final question. I think you already answered it. It's an important question. Have you ever been promoted?
Yes. That I've been promoted, unfortunately, at every single job of my life multiple times. And yeah, definitely been promoted. I started every single job from the ground up and then worked my way up to executive level. So yeah, unfortunately, yes, I have.
Yeah. You can't join the club. I'm happy for you. You just can't join the Never Been Promoted Club. You can watch us from inside, be unpromoted, and talk a bunch of trash about all you promoted, successful types in the world. And yet you still left to become an entrepreneur, which makes you an exciting person because the area you picked is about picking better people. So it makes sense because your perspective. So I think you found your next big exit. When you have your yacht from your exit, I'd like to be a part of that and have a second interview. That's all I ask.
Here you go. Hey, you said it first. It's now on paper.
It is for sure, and you agreed to it, so that's binding. That's how we're going to do this. By the way, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing. Before we leave, before anyone hangs up, don't hit that pause button now. If you're listening, if you made it this far, you got to listen for 20 more seconds. Where should they go again to get a hold of you?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, they can look up Right Fit Advisors. They can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. Shahrukh Zahir. They can also find us on our website at rightfitadvisors.com. There's, anybody that goes there, encourage them to go to services page just so that they can learn all the ways we impact organizations directly and job seekers. So I know we talked a lot about impacting organizations, and one of the second and the biggest part of that is also job seekers. So if you're job seekers, go there and see how we can help you.
And if it's 2034 and you're listening to this podcast, Twitter is X at that point, and Elon Musk is probably somewhere in space. I'm going to throw that out there just for fidelity purposes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you too as well. Thank you so much for coming on. And anybody who's made it to this point in the podcast, you've been awarded 10 dad points. You may spend those anywhere you like. My kids have billions of points. They have not spent them. But thank you for listening. Thank you for being a guest. And until we meet next time on the Never Been Promoted podcast, go unleash your entrepreneur. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Never Been Promoted with Thomas Helfrich. Make sure to check the show notes for our guest contact information and any relevant links. Connect with Thomas personally at neverbeenpromoted.com.
Thanks again to InstantlyRelevant.com for producing the show, all the social media, all the content, posts, articles, everything. Could not do it without you. InstantlyRelevant.com. Check it out. They're awesome. Once again, InstantlyRelevant.com.